Good morning, everybody. Today we are beginning a new Unit 3, and today's Unit 3, Lesson 1. We're talking in this unit about research writing. Before we get into that, however, I just want to remind you that you have a rhetorical analysis essay, which will be due on Wednesday. We will actually, if you're not with us in class for this lesson today, just remember that you will upload into Unicheck your lesson, and it will be due on Wednesday, no exceptions asked. We are also printing a hard copy in class, so come to class on Wednesday with your rhetorical analysis done. So you'll look at today's lesson, and you can, if you are not here with us, just know that I'm spending the first part of time answering any questions you have about your rhetorical analysis essay and reminding you of editing features that can kill your A essay into a B essay really quickly. So proof your work, go over your rubric, make sure that you have met all of the requirements for that essay that's due on Wednesday. Anyway, the rest of this lesson, you can see that we're moving into a section on, or today's lesson will be on choosing topics. And we're actually beginning another section of academic notes, which means the last set of academic notes we will staple and turn those in as well. So if you're not with us, they will be due on Wednesday. So in your academic notes today, we're going to take some background information on research. These 7 concepts are really important. I'm not going to take time to read them to you, but I do want you to pause the video and record them in today's academic notes. These are the skills that you'll be learning over the course of the next 4 weeks. The next thing in your academic notes, I just want you to look at this little graphic. I think it's since a research essay follows so well after analysis essay, but it's a completely like an opposite shift. If you look at the analysis essay, you can see that you start with one essay and you break that one essay into chunks of what the writer did. Whereas in a research or a synthesis essay, you have multiple sources, and eventually you will take those sources and compile it into one paper. This slide is, again, still part of academic notes. It talks about the word research, and if you look at some of these definitions, you'll see that research is so far beyond what we do in school. The concept of research is part of professions, and everything from medical professions to creating new projects. But the skill of research that you learn for research papers translates so well to occupations and things you will be doing in life. One of my favorite definitions is this one, that Izar Martinez was one of my professors at Utah State when I was working in my master's degree. And he said, research is a formal, systematic, intensive process of carrying on a scientific method of analysis. If you're not with us in class, I'm going to take time to break that down and explain all of that, what it means. But if you're not with us, just take every word or phrase in that full sentence, and each part of that or each word will help you kind of learn the big picture idea of what research is. The other thing, this next part, types of research, I've included this to show that, give you an example of how research moves beyond research papers. And so these are types of research that you will be doing in careers in the future. The other thing that I want to talk about as far as this big concept of research is, why in the world do colleges have you write research papers all the time? And part of it is to create a mindset of curiosity. That's one of the things that college is so important for. Give us this idea of questioning and delving into topics on our own. Research writing is such, of course, we learn how to write research papers in English classes, but then we move on to other classes and it's kind of this isolated project that you do. But if you look at where it says this concept of intellectual curiosity, these are the things that make a college student get the most out of the college experience. So the first one talks about being more of an active rather than a passive learner. So that what that means is that you take control of, you get out of your education or your university experience what you put into it. Collaboration. That means that we are engaging with other people's research, that sometimes our research projects are done in teams. The next one is the actual process of doing research and understanding the difference between primary and secondary sources. And it moves much more from our 9th grade definition of primary and secondary sources. It's learning how to gather our own primary sources and do the preliminary work behind the scenes rather than just saying, well, this is a primary versus a secondary source. The next thing about intellectual curiosity is understanding our work versus other people's work and why it is important that we value intellectual property. What has belonged to someone else is their work, not ours. And then the most important thing, again, with this scholarly, becoming a part of a scholarly community, is to take education into our own hands. The university experience is certainly challenging, but it's only as challenging as we let it be. And if we're paying thousands and thousands of dollars for an education experience, we have to become a part of that engagement process, not just sitting there like a sponge waiting for our teacher to tell us what to do or how to think. So with all those ideas in mind, what I've done is I want to demonstrate them for the first 3 days of classes, how to take a topic and turn it into something that's worthy to actually do college level research for. So I actually picked 3 topics on my own. So these are things that maybe I'm interested in that you might not be interested in. You're going to pick one of these topics at the end to narrow it down. So it's important that you pay attention each day and think of some ideas of what you could potentially choose for your research topic. The reason I am having all of you choose from these 3 topics is because in the 2010 experience, you get to choose your own topic. And I don't want you to pick a topic in 1010 and then have me tell you in 2010 or someone else, well, you've already done that one. So this will just give you a chance to take one of 3 topics and learn how to go with it with a research paper. And then the other thing is to explain how we can take topics from various levels, local, state, and national levels. So to illustrate that, the first topic that I am going to have you choose from is a concept of poverty. I think there's a lot in the news right now about social class, good and bad. There are people who don't want us to talk about this, but what we're going to use with poverty in this class is, again, I'm not making this political at all, but just letting us look at perceptions of different people around us that we're not all the same. Anyway, to illustrate that, I have 6 different books that all deal with poverty, and I've read all of them. And so each of them, there's an excerpt in your Canvas lesson today, and I want to illustrate the point that the first thing when you get a topic, it's important that you learn about the topic before you ever dive into researching the topic. So in class, I gave some background to each of them, but you can, if you're at home, just pick one, go to your resource section, open it up, and spend about 10 minutes reading. When you get done with it, I want you to write down 2 or 3 things that you've learned about poverty that you didn't know. The next thing we are doing in class is watching an excerpt from a 2020 documentary. Diane Sawyer did this, and it was done a few years ago, but it was entitled A Hidden America, Children of the Mountains. And it talks about children in the Appalachian part of our country. And it delves into the poverty that's in that area. So in class, we're going to watch it and record 2 or 3 things more that's new about that topic. The next thing that we are doing in class is learning about how to actually narrow a topic. So Ohio State, in their Pressbook articles, wrote an article about this. It's entitled Narrowing a Topic. So you can see that the pie is a good illustration of the concept. We talked about poverty. You've learned a little bit about poverty in today's lesson, but for a research paper, you don't want to cover the whole pie. You just want an excerpt of it, a small portion of it. So open up this article and learn how to narrow topics for college writing. This slide goes over why in the world you have to do that. What happens when we don't narrow topics? So there are 4 bullets here. If we don't narrow our topics, we end up with way too many sources that get us nowhere unless we have 20 years of our life to delve into volumes and volumes of books. And of course, that's not what we want to do. The next one, if we don't narrow topics, our information is so general that it's boring to everybody. And the next one, if we don't narrow our topics, it leads us to, we can't follow the scientific method that we talked about earlier with that definition by learning how to solve a problem. And then finally, if we don't narrow topics, we have so many concepts or ideas that there's no way that you can keep a focus, or the paper won't be well written when we actually begin that task. So to illustrate that, I took the topic of poverty and created a 1-sentence topic that would work well for a college level essay, research essay. So this is what I said. Even though elite colleges like Harvard, Princeton, and Yale make a conscientious effort to recruit socioeconomically disadvantaged students, why is there still a distinct disadvantage for them once they arrive on campus? You can see that that is so narrowed now that when I actually start finding information, it's focused my topic of what I can look for. Then I can end up, as we learn about using databases and stuff in the next few days, then I have a good start and it gets rid of the thousands and thousands of articles that would be out there on poverty. So how do you get to something like what I just created? This is a strategy that Stanford uses in their beginning writing classes on their university. And it's called an accordion strategy. And you'll notice that there's just actually 2 different types of questions going on here. One's in yellow, one's in green. And each of these deal with, this excerpt is old. I know the topic's old, but in California, they adopted, or there was a proposition that was on the voting in voters in California as whether to adopt Proposition 8. And so if you look at it, the one end of it starts off with extremely general, and that's on the right-hand side, so general that it's boring. Whereas if you go, I know you read this backwards, but then if you go back to the left-hand side, you can see that both the yellow and the green on the left-hand side are much more specific, and that would work well for a research paper. So you are going to do the same thing, use this resource in your handout, and you come up with a one sentence definition on your topic. Good luck.